Hey guys, so this is Dave at Surfcraft Union, and this is another episode of Interviews, and I'm here with Greg. I'm going to allow Greg to introduce himself.
Hey, my name's Greg Melega. My surfboard brand is SeaFairing. I'm from Long Beach Island, New Jersey, and yeah, I've been shaping for a little over 10 years.
Sick. So I met Greg a few years ago. You and I shared a heat in a contest in the Ala.
Yeah,
and
the Longboard Classic.
Yeah, the Longboard Classic, which was probably my first contest in I don't even know how long, especially being a classic contest where I had to actually take the board out of my garage and clean it and fix it and make sure that it was watertight and all that shit.
Yeah, and it would last like 3 heats.
Pretty much, I know, it was so bad. But yeah, after that, I just kept in touch, and we just kept in touch, and you know, I just see you making surfing a part of your life day to day. So with that said, we're in this giant garage. We're 2 blocks from the beach. There's a bus in your driveway, and there's about 3 different bays in this place right now. What are you doing here?
Yeah, man, a couple of things. Oh man, I don't know where to start with that, but I grew up a few blocks away from here, which is surreal. My parents still live over there. We're in Beach Haven right now, for all of you that aren't here. And I moved all around, but I came back here, and you know, this is where I love to be, love to surf. We have great waves here, and I can't afford a house on this island, let alone like anyone else who lives here. So my girlfriend and I are converting a shuttle bus that we can be living in. So that's
sick. One
of the things we're working on right now. And I've worked in a small shaping bay, pretty much the size of this room, for 6 or 7 years out of how much I've been shaping. And yeah, one thing led to another with a surf lesson client of mine who was looking for a home on the island, and I would be taking this guy out in winter days. He really wanted to just like get into the lifestyle of surfing and figure it out and be there for the magic days just by going all the time. That's the only way that you get out for those really dreamy sessions, as you know. But he was stoked, and I told him, you know, the void, that there's no place. Everyone loves to shape, but you can't glass a board, you can't sand a board, or if you can, you don't want to, because it's just so nasty if you don't have the right environment to be doing it in. But like we were just saying, you can't really shape and glass in the same room, at least in a production sense. And if you're gonna make board after board, it's just like a headache. So my buddy Chuck bought the building that we're sitting in right now, and it was an old 2-car garage that he has some design friends, and he's a civil engineer, and he offered right back to me what I gave to him, and he's like, all right, you know, you gave me the full treatment with surfing, I'm gonna give you the full treatment with design and what it takes to make this happen in a legit professional sense. So I was like, all right, man, here we go. So
dude, that's incredible. And that's like, not to sound like that guy that's like, oh, the universe is doing it, that's universal.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's nuts.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sick.
It's something that I'm stoked to share with people, because it's like, you can't make it up, you know. I couldn't afford, like I just said, a house on this island, let alone to rebuild a workshop that this was empty a month and a half ago when you were here, and now we're grinding, but...
And this is commercial.
Yeah, we're licensed to manufacture products that we will be selling here.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's really exciting for sure.
So I did a little background, and quickly, let's just go over Lineage on this island. And how long has your family been here?
Man, I'm gonna say conservatively that, as far as I know, I'm the 12th generation to my mom's side of the family, the Mathis family.
That's nuts.
They were here in this early 1700s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Who else surfs in your family?
My mom's brother did, but that wasn't really an influence on my brothers and I.
Okay.
But I have 2 older brothers and they both surf.
Cool.
And my oldest brother, Brian, travel surfs. He's flown and surfed all around the world, and that's what he's doing right now. It's just kind of what he loves to do.
That's awesome.
Stoked for him, yeah.
Yeah.
And my brother Mike is a professional lifeguard, but has recently just dove into his passion of wanting to become a professional or competitive surfer along those lines, and just competed in the Mexi Log Fest.
Oh, we're gonna get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it.
Oh yeah, man.
For sure.
So they were really cool influences on me growing up, just to have 2 older brothers that were into just being in the water, and I couldn't wait to get a 5 mil to get out there, you know. And once I was 14 or something, I was out on huge days with a boogie board and swim fins, just like, you know, dying. If my parents only knew like what I was going out in, they'd be freaking out, you know. But it was epic. So fun.
That's killer. So when talking about past and history and all that, one of the things that drawn me towards you was your knowledge and roots of vintage surfcraft. What led you to this deep dive?
Oh man, that was actually pretty cool. So I grew up working at a bicycle repair shop, which is like down this block, and that's where my first workshop was as well.
Okay.
And that comes along later. But in the back of this bike shop, the original owner was Ron Demina. If you don't know him, you know him by Ron John. And he had this log cabin that was made out of a redwood. I don't know what it was made out of, but it was, you know, the height of this room but circular, and they would shape and glass boards in this cabin that sat there. And it's like a myth on LBI. It's like, you remember the cabin? And he got like a code violation and like sawed it down one day or something. People are like, I don't know, but he left 6 boards in the back of the shop there. And as a kid, that was what I grew up on riding, was just 1960s like spoilers. And there's a Duke back there that I was riding when I was like 18 or something. And from there, it was just, you know, I got my butt kicked on those boards because they're huge, but man, it was a real lesson into surf history, and I didn't know what I was diving into at the time, but the more people you meet, it really just shifts things into perspective. The oldest surf shop in New Jersey is on LBI, Brighton Beach Surf Shop, and he got me into shaping. You know, I went there to get a board fixed, and he's like, here's some fiberglass and some resin, and just put it in like a popcorn cup. And I'm a little kid. He's like, does your dad have resin? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, my dad doesn't have resin. I'm just like terrified. I'm like, I can't fix this fucking thing. But years later, I was like, oh wait, I can. Like, I put it together. But he has a hoard of vintage boards there. So through conversation, honestly, is how you learn everything. It's like, who's Dale Velzy? It's like, oh, well, he started everything. Don't you know that? It's like, no. It's like, tell me about it. You know?
Exactly.
And you put the story together, and it's really cool to see the lineage of how any board is made and why it was made and where it was surfed and what that guy was trying to do. If he was trying to surf alone like Greeno, or like if he was trying to make a ton of money like everybody else pretty much, or whatever it is. So
it's wild. My dad surfed, I don't know till when, but he was, you know, he was a surfer. He lived in Monmouth County and surfed. It's not really what everybody did, but he said that he used to buy boards at like Sears. Like, that's where they sold boards.
wow.
And it's like, that's kind of weird to think about, like now they sell them at Costco, but they may have begun not necessarily in Sears.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that was even an option. And like boat manufacturers sold surfboards.
Wow.
You know, like it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of sweet though.
Yeah. Definitely.
So with your brand, Seafaring, do you find your vintage collection influencing the shapes that you make?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, it's by immersion of anything, you're going to be influenced by it. And I spend a lot of time riding vintage boards and trying to understand why they were doing what they were doing at different times, and it's appealing to the masses and what people wanted to ride. But there's this sweet spot in the late 60s where guys wanted to ride longboards, they were getting popular, and then they got really good at making them.
Yeah.
And it was right before the shortboard era was, you know, right at that time in 1969, 1970, but in 1967 and 8, people were making incredible nose riders or just fluid, big wave longboards that could do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to look at those and not just copy them, but to say like, okay, he was riding that at Malibu or at Waimea or wherever it may be, and apply it to New Jersey beach or point breaks, where it's, you know, not a real point break like Rincon, but we got a point that runs and goes quick, and you have to have that style of board here with more of a hollow wave that's tubing more often than not. Even if it isn't a huge tube, it has that shape and hollow bottom to it. So seeing how those vintage boards just like, you know, they had a purpose and they were trying to figure something out because it hadn't been done yet.
Yeah.
And they're clunky and they have like weird rails sometimes, or just like massive thickness or weight to them, or a plastic fin that just like flops over sideways. You know, this board would be perfect, but it's like a plastic fin. What were you guys thinking?
Yeah.
But it puts a lot of thoughts in your head. Mainly one that like everything's already been done, so you can't have any achievement of like, I did it first. It's like, no, like in the back of the line, man. Like keep reading. Like someone did it hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, just because there's not a patent on it doesn't mean it hasn't been done.
Yeah. Totally.
I have a buddy that I'm letting him borrow my Maury Pope. It's like a 9/8, the blue machine.
Oh, sick.
And I've been having him borrow it, and he surfs in Bayhead, and he's like, man, that board was like really tough to get used to, but like once I figured out how to surf it, like it just runs down the beach. And there's something about that weight, and there's something about certain things about those vintage boards that just excel, but it's finding the negative and the positive and trying to figure out how to incorporate it, right?
Yeah, and move forward with that concept for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, because a lot of them didn't have these like crazy bells and whistles, and eventually they did. Like the Cat from Knoll has this wild scoop deck that he stole from, you know, Yater, who was doing the spoon, and he just wanted it to look a little bit different and cooler. But it's like many of them are just so subtle, and it's like a hard edge in the nose and like really soft lift in the tail, or a flip to blank that like, who would have thought to do that? But you have all this reverse rocker, and it's like, whoa, okay, these guys were not just tooling around. They were like true craftsmen of their boards. And it's a living piece of history that you can like look at something that's a painting and be like, I think I get it. But you could like take a board out and be like, whoa, like I understand what this guy was doing. Like I just got my ass kicked, and it was like, I get it. It threw me back to like 1972.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like even me riding, because I've ridden the Maury Pope before, and like I'll find myself like every once in a while doing these like little like heel toe wiggles, and it's kind of funny because I'm like, am I like doing what Dora did right now?
Yeah.
Like, is that how you work this thing? But it's wild, man.
Yeah.
What are your current models and how do you feel they play a part in New Jersey? Like, what models do you feel are just like perfect for LBI and just, good boards for this area?
Yeah. Again, totally subjective answer because I surf beach breaks, but there is a wave that I go to that breaks for a long period of time, and having an 11-foot board is incredible there. And I didn't figure that out until I rode, 9, 9.6, 10, 10.6, and then you get to these big, heavy old boards, and you're like, wait, there's something here. If you lose 10 pounds, that you could rip through the water. So the glider that I make is really fun, and I love to have that for small days, but really big days. It sounds crazy, but I love going out when it's big on a really big board.
Yeah.
It feels like it matches the scale of things.
Especially if it's a soft wave, and I know what wave you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it, though.
Yeah. So that's one. The Heartbreaker is probably one of the more popular boards that I do. That's a mid-length that I make. And it works great for around here, just to have the width in the right spot, the rocker in the right spot. Like, mid-lengths in general just work great on the East Coast because you can get that paddle, you can turn the board, you can do it 2+1 or single fin, you can go 6 foot to 8.6 and have similar feels if you vary the V in certain spots and the thickness and the roll. But yeah, it's interesting how that shifted my surfing away from longboarding, where many days where it would be like waist high and really good, and I would still longboard, or a little bit bigger than that, and I would still be like trying to get good nose rides and hold it high and tight. And the mid-length brought me into wanting to do arcs and cut back into the pocket, or like find a different line lower on the wave and hit a high line and come back down. And you can do that on a single fin still, and I really like that drawn out bottom turn. So yeah, I find the mid-length does that a lot. And I love doing finless boards. For like 4 or 5 years I only made wooden boards, and the finless stuff is like learning to surf all over again. Like, you could be a great surfer and just hop on this thing and be humbled instantly.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But there's so much speed there that it's like an untapped territory. It's like, wait, I don't have to have fins, or I can have channels or really tiny fins and just change the game. Like, there's no right answer. So that's always fun.
Definitely. I've dabbled, to say the least, in finless or little finlets as fins, and you do find yourself on parts of the wave that you didn't know existed. I've gotten like little cover-ups going sideways where I'm looking back at the barrel and I'm going this way, and I'm just like, what? This is what that looks like. And it's wild. It's I gotta try one.
Yeah.
I gotta try one. I gotta try one of yours.
Totally. Yeah, it's any of them, honestly. To get, like, the Hawaiians called it lala, where it's this sense of forward direction when a wave's pulling you up. Literally what you're just saying, where you're like, I know I'm going forward, but I'm like moving up at the same time because you don't have a fin holding you in. So it's this controlled like side slip dance that you're doing. And at any given point, you just do a 360. And like, someone's like, that was cool. Or like, that was not intentional.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't even do it.
Yeah. But thanks. Like.
No, they're definitely a good time. I will have to do one of those. So yourself and your brothers, Mike and Brian, all good surfers. Mike recently was invited to the Mexi Log Fest, which is sick because representing Jersey, like, that's crazy. Like, that's a great accomplishment to begin with. I'm just curious, does he influence some designs that you make? Does he help you with just like different tweaks that you may or may, like stuff like that?
Yeah. He has a lot of industry experience. He lived in California and worked for Rusty for
Okay.
I don't know how many years. He ran a CNC machine for a few years, and then he worked for Dane over at Vulcan Surfboards.
Okay.
And Vulcan also owns and operates Paragon, which is one of the biggest CNC cutting companies in the U.S., let alone California. But
I didn't know that.
yeah, not many people, even know about CNC cutting, but a lot of people, when you get to a production scale, you literally can't make this many boards by hand. So to have it precision cut on a machine and then finished by hand, you can eliminate a lot of extra time. And to run that machine is just as hard as shaping a board.
Sure.
If you screw that up, then you just have like this weird, unusable thing, pretty much.
Yeah.
But if you're good at it, then you just save the shaper a ton of time.
So.
And labor on your body, so you can do more. Anyway. So Mike is really dialed into the details of every little board, and he's a very good surfer too, and a really good paddler and swimmer, all those things. So, especially with the Captain Tilt, my longboard model, he rode one, I made him one, and he rode the crap out of it at Sano and tons of places in Southern California. And my oldest brother, Brian, has flown around the world with one of those boards as well.
Cool.
And he sends me feedback from all these different places about what fin works best that he really likes and where he's putting it in the box. And Mike knows a little bit more about the nuances of the shape that he really wants. And he's a lighter build than me, so it puts a different perspective in my mind, rather than shaping a board for yourself, which is like a terrible rabbit hole to fall in as a shaper, where everything comes out great just for you, but terrible for everybody else around you. So like, she's like, oh wait, like a 160-pound person doesn't want like triple 8-ounce glass on their deck. He's like, no, like I'm never gonna put my knee that deep into the board. It's like, oh, but I do. Like I've never thought of that. So but yeah, it's really fun to have that, and just buddies around that are very talented surfers, and you could throw something in their hands and just be like, what do you think? Like rip it apart, and it's like this and that, and you end up with something that's a way more polished thing by not being attached to like making the best board. It's like, no, that's like the best I had at that time. Let's just move forward with like what we can all come up with better together.
I mean, everybody's different. A couple years back, I tried to do a surfboard share program where I bought probably about 24 boards.
Well.
And and I still owe so much money to American Express just for that. And I started to do it, and I did this demo day, and all these people showed up, and it was great. And I was just like, hey, like, what do you guys think? And they're just like, it's a great idea, but you bought all these boards for you. All these boards are what you would ride. So like, if one of my friends is 200 pounds and wants to ride a log, he's not going to ride a 9.0 nose rider. Like that's not going to work for that person.
Yeah.
So it is good to have different people. Like, your brother Mike is probably like my size.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bigger.
No, he's like pretty much your size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would ride something probably a lot different than you would, and I might even ride something different than he would. So.
Right. Yeah, and what you want out of a nose rider can be very specific.
Yeah.
If you want a roll bottom or a concave nose, those are two very different feelings in how you set up for that critical section of the wave.
Absolutely.
It's like totally just your style.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I have a bad back, so like I have to order boards like.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't. Like I have a Takayama Model T, a 9.8 That's actually for the next 3 for 30. And I mean, I've tested it once or twice, whatever. And it's a lot of board for my 140-pound frame to move around. And I'm like, shit, how do people do this?
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Right. But to have like a bigger frame, you know, I want every pound of that 9/8, if not more. Like,
yeah.
My personal boards are very heavy.
Yeah.
People will be like, that looks cool, and like, can I feel it? I'm like, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And then they hold it, they're like, oh my god, like, what do you do with this thing?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, I can go through 20-mile-an-hour offshore winds and like, you know, still be on the wave.
Totally clear.
Sometimes,
through.
yeah.
That's awesome. As I mentioned, I met your whole family at the classic contest hosted by Alliance for a Living Ocean. Is your family involved in that? Is that something that you are participating in?
I think I am still an active member, maybe. Like,
Okay.
You pay dues to it every year or something, and I've made the trophies for the competition a few years.
Cool.
But I just try and show up at their events and like, try and get there early and help them screw the stage together, like carry crap onto the beach for all the vendors. Like,
Sure.
I just try and do that every year for like whether it's Jetties, Coquina, the Clam Jam, ALO's thing here. Like they're all local. They're all the same people that are doing these things and showing up all the time. So to take like a literal weight out of it and just be like, okay, you know, I'm not surfing today, but if you are, you don't want to carry like thousands of pounds up and down the beach. Like, no, I do.
So what do they do?
ALO does a lot of conservation for our area regarding the ecosystem, ocean. The bay is a really fragile ecosystem here, so they do a lot of education. I think that they just opened up like an education center. I'm not certain where it is on LBI, but it's definitely something to look into. But they're a nonprofit and they get the good word out about a lot of things that, you know, tourists don't know about. Mm-hmm. They just come here and they're like, what's that? You know, what are those giant black boxes sitting on the beach? And they're like, oh, they're for greenheads and the worst fly in the world. They'll rip the skin out of your flesh. And it's just like terrible beings.
With a west wind?
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. That's why we have our lonesome surf spot. No one wants to surf there. Or the water is 70 degrees and you have a 3-mil on because of the flies. Yeah, that's a thing. Kyle G runs it right now. The guy before him, Chris Huck, ran it. Like everyone who's a part of it, older in the community or younger, just has the good intention of like trying to keep the natural state of the island, which is being built on more and more and more every day, intact or at least acknowledged in the places it is preserved and that you can go enjoy and experience it. Yeah,
because a lot of people, you know, and just like where I live, like a lot of people come there and they don't know what it's all about. You know, like they say, they'll see something that says like, you know, no trespassing on the dunes, and they're like, what's a dune? I'm like, well, there's a reason why there's still a boardwalk. Like,
right.
There's a reason why it's there. And yeah, that's awesome that like you're involved in that, and it's awesome that it's around, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely. And as a tourist, I would be stoked to know that in a place I'm going. You're just like, oh, what's the local ecosystem like here? You know, we have very different forests, and everyone doesn't view New Jersey as the Garden State if you drive from New York south, but if you go from Cape May up, you're surrounded by woods, you know, the entire length and width of the state. But they're way different than other places, you know, we're flatlands, we have a lot of sand, you know, just different things, but it's a very fruitful place to live too. There's tons of berries and apples, peach trees, cherry trees all around here, so it's a unique place that you could just glance over and be like, oh, that's where the Guidos live, no, let's keep going. Honey. Like, it's like, okay, there's a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's amazing. So I got the pleasure of borrowing your Walter for the second episode of my 3 for 30. I wanted to have you explain what role it has in your quiver, which you kind of touched on, but you also make or have made a coop box.
Yeah.
Could you explain what a coop box is?
Yeah, totally. So I'm gonna get the year wrong, but Tom Blake in the early 1900s saw the demand and need for a hollow wooden surfboard as opposed to a solid wooden surfboard, just out of the weight, the ease to ride it, and he was a waterman, so he was just trying to advance the sport with the materials that were available at the time. And a coop box is built like a boat, where it has ribs and battens and decking and sides on it, and it's all screwed together. And that was the original advancement from a solid wood board. It's very crude, but he was a really good salesman at the time too, and it was just needed because people were drowning all over the country. There wasn't really like a lifeguard association or anything like this, so he sold these boards to the Red Cross, and they were stationed at lakes and pools and like beaches all over, so you could drag a board down to the water, even if you weren't a lifeguard, and go save somebody that was out in the water.
Okay.
And sold tons of them. And as a grant for the New Jersey Surfing Museum, I was able to recreate a Tom Blake board from a Popular Mechanics article that I found, and it set me on this goose chase of like trying to find the original surfboard that someone made in New Jersey. That was the goal, and I was going to remake that board. And I just, I met the wildest people that
I could only imagine.
They just rocked what I knew, It's like, well, Tom Blake clearly made the first boards that came to New Jersey. Who else would have made these? And I had multiple people tell me that there were seafarers that would come off of boats they were trading, have solid wood boards, ride the waves here, trade their stuff, and then get back on their boats and leave. And that was 100 years before Tom Blake was making a board. It's like, wait. And there's letters that show it, and it's like, whoa, okay, there's a really lost history with surfing because it was just for fun. Why would you, write home unless you were really stoked? And that's like the case that you have of 100 years later, 200 years later.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So they were almost used as rescue boards.
Yeah, coop boxes were for sure. And you could put a sail on the thing. They're built like boats that you could put a motor on the back of it.
Yeah.
Like it was something that mom and pop could build at home, and like it took me 6 months to build this thing. It was like, yeah, you could build this at home, but oh man. So it weighs around 100 pounds. It's 12 feet long,
Wow.
5.5 inches thick. There's no fin on it. The fin wasn't invented yet. Tom Blake put a sailboat fin on the bottom of a board eventually, and that was the first fin that happened in Waikiki in Hawaii.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's a trip, but it is an animal to ride. I've ridden it in small surf, and I've taken it out in chest high waves before, and I had a wave coming at me that was, 3 feet of white water when I'm paddling out. It's like, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna keep paddling, like, who knows? And it just breached and shot through it like a battleship, just right over the other side. I wasn't even paddling, and I almost fell off the back and just like kept going.
Sounds terrifying.
Oh yeah. Once you commit to a wave, you like cannot back off of it. It just goes. So. Yeah. I've been doing it in a few years for a reason. It's just like.
Well, I remember when I saw you at the contest. I remember you brought that thing by yourself on your shoulder.
Yeah, I think my buddy Mikey might have helped me out, or someone struggling on the. No, I did walk it down the beach by myself. Yeah. Leaving, I had some help for sure.
Yeah. And I remember looking at it, and you know, you and I were chatting, and I was like, what? Like, holy shit, you brought a coop box. And you were like, yeah, you want to try it? And I was like, no. It looks, you know, maybe like on the smallest of the days, but it looks really cool. It looks just interesting in the aspect of like, that is possibly how it kind of all started as far as maybe like paddleboarding and, you know, all that stuff. I mean, the thing's the size of like a Boston whaler.
Yeah, it weighs as much too. And
exactly.
It's like, yeah. Like, you know, lifeguards were standing up on their boards. They had to have been in the 20s and the 30s, but a lot of them were solid wood or like they were just beastly boards. And then the coop box came, and you just have to imagine they were at least hop up to their knees or like try and play around after work or something like that.
They could have been bodyboarders their whole life.
Right, yeah, like, they might have, you know, there's stories of like the ironing boards being stolen after people saw Duke Hanamoku come here in like 1912 in Atlantic City, and people just went wild after that, but yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Good for you, man, because I'm sure that must have been challenging to say the least.
Yeah, more than one way, for sure.
Yeah. So, what is your go-to board, whether it be your own or if you have a classic board? Like, what's your kind of the one that always kind of stays close? You know, always has wax in it, on it, always has a fin in it, like ready to go.
Yeah. I have a 1967 Hansen Competitor. Okay. And it's pretty much like new old stock. I don't know if it was ever ridden before I got it. And it's the best riding longboard I've ever ridden.
That's awesome.
So that one, if it's good, that one's, you know, ready to go at all times for sure. I keep a pair of swim fins in my truck, like, just because, you know, I used to body surf a lot, but I find so often that if you just get out for 5 minutes before a session, you get so dialed into what's going on there, warm your body up a little bit, and then go grab a board of whatever you feel is like, oh, maybe I do want a longboard right now, or feel out something different. So I love that little realization. I used to body surf a lot, but the Heartbreaker is kind of my go-to, a 7.7 mid-length single fin. I have a Greeno Power Blade fin that is magic with that thing. It's so fun how it makes it feel like a thruster even though it's a single fin, with how much grip the stiff, twisty fin does. You know, it just adds a lot to it. So yeah, those are definitely like my two go-tos right now.
Cool. Yeah. And the Heartbreaker is actually, you were talking about it earlier, but it's a little holy, a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. The original one's a full displacement haul, and I still make some of them like that. But the magic balance I found was displacement in the front and planing haul in the back, or tri-planing in the back. And you could put that on so many different styles of boards and tweak it a little bit with the fin cluster and where you're putting the big nuances of those features, and it works great, especially around here for quick pitchy waves that you want to generate tons of speed on, but you don't want to catch the front of your board in the ears when you're pumping on your outside rail or like just rolling the board over because of that. So having a lot of roll in the front, it makes it sensitive, and it's a little bit harder to paddle, like has those hang-ups, but once you're on the wave, it's something else for sure.
Yeah. That's killer.
So I enjoy that feeling.
Yeah, no, I do too. I dabble with holes, and it's a love-hate.
Yeah.
It is, and on the East Coast, there's days where I've had where like I'm like, oh my god, this is all I want to surf, and then there's days where I'm just like, well, why did I bring this thing out? Like, it's choppy. This doesn't make any sense at all. But you get it on the right day, and it really does, especially on like something that's almost, I don't want to say mushy, but just something that's a little slower. it makes you feel like you're going so fast.
Yeah,
And it's a great feeling.
totally.
For sure. So really this is the end. But
See you,
it's
man.
been a pleasure. All right, it's a wrap. So any shout outs you want to make to the audience? You know, anyone you want to thank or anything like that?
Oh man. All the local heads for sure. Just the people that are out there every day, you know, just keep enjoying it. There have been so many people that have like helped me along the way that they probably don't even know it, but just those little conversations you have.
Mm-hmm.
Skip Fry for one of them. That was really impactful and like making me go after what I want. Bird from Bird Surf Shed.
Cool.
Really nice dude. If you're in San Diego, you want to try one of my pipos, go see Bird. I'll
Sick.
lend it out to you.
Sick.
Yeah. Mike from Brighton Beach in town here. His dad got me, you know, that popcorn cup full of crap in it, and like got my gears turning for sure. You know, parents that put up with you and just like, okay, this is what you're doing now, cool. Like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Good family, good friends, great partner. You know, my girlfriend is just like, okay, like, have fun. You know, you're building all this crazy stuff, but she's right next to me the whole time.
That's
so
awesome.
It's really sick.
Yeah, it's good to have support.
Yeah, totally. And
Okay.
just the random people you meet along the way, like, if you go for it, you know, as you know, you go for it, you just meet the people that see you're doing it and go like, whoa, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna help you because I see you're fully immersed in like this thing that you're doing, you know?
It's all connections, you know, and it's all, it doesn't happen overnight. And, you know, I mean, you and I have one thing in common besides surfing and besides a love for surfing, but you and I used to work at bars and restaurants. And who would have thought that you would have this, well, you know, like, you get stuck in that restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get out.
Totally.
But, you know, you roll the dice and you give it a shot, and now you have this, you know, garage 2 blocks from the beach.
Yeah.
And fuck, you can't buy this kind of love.
No. And the amount of people that stop by daily and like, when are you gonna be open? You know, and it isn't out of like, we're beating your door down. It's like, we wanna like come see it, hang out and support type of thing. It's such a cool community. And the local businesses, you don't know who you wanna like, you know, you're not trying to step on anybody's toes, but just to have like so many different other surf shops be like, whoa, like, anything you need, like, let us know. Like, run up a tab here if you need to. It's just like, oh, I don't want to do that, but like, thank you, you know? And it's really cool to see, yeah. But if you don't just go for it, you know, I would probably be working for the government or be a cop right now if I didn't, you know, take that left turn and 180 degree and just follow what made sense to me.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, you know?
Dude, I used to sell insurance.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, what?
Yeah. But you needed to,
I
you know?
needed to.
Or else you wouldn't have been here or had the hunger to go like, I do not want to sell insurance
I don't want to sell
anymore.
insurance anymore.
Totally. Like, I don't want to be a bartender anymore.
Yeah.
I love to get up early and go surf. That's
Yeah.
my favorite thing, you know?
For sure.
So,
That's
you can't do both of those things. And yeah.
Well, you can, but it's just a real miserable life.
Yeah, you're not going to be very happy.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. You know, I love this part of New Jersey. Where I live, it's not the same. It's a lot of fun, but it's nice to come down here, just driving down and seeing the same places, like the donut shop. Like, that place has been there forever. So it's cool to like see that things are changing, but Long Beach Island is still the same place.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming down too, man.
Of course, man.
Reviewing the board and just doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, man. And it wasn't that bad. The traffic wasn't that bad.
Wow.
I hit Seaside. Seaside traffic's a little gnarly. And then kind of pretty smooth sailing.
I'm glad we did it now and not like a few weeks from now, because this would be like midnight that we'd be talking.
I'll probably see you in September, and that's about it.
Yeah. Unless I ride my bike up or something.
Yeah, there you go. Right on. Well, thank you. And yeah, that's it.